The X68000 is a home computer created by Sharp Corporation, first released in 1987, sold only in Japan. The first model features a 10 MHz Motorola 68000 CPU, 1 MB of RAM, and no hard drive. The last model was released in 1993 with a 25 MHz Motorola 68030 CPU, 4 MB of RAM, and optional 80 MB SCSI hard drive. RAM in these systems is expandable to 12 MB, though most games and applications do not require more than 2. Operating system. The X68K runs an operating system called Human68K, which was developed for Sharp by Hudson Soft, an MS-DOS work-alike. Human68K features English-based commands very similar to those in MS-DOS. Executable files have the extension X. Versions of the OS prior to 2.0 have command line output only for common utilities like format and switch, while later versions included forms-based versions of these utilities. At least 3 major versions of the OS were released, with several updates in between. Other operating systems available include NETBSD for X68030 and OS 9. Early models have a GUI called VS, or Visual Shell. Later ones were originally packaged with SX Window. A third GUI called Co-Windows exists with an interface similar to Motif. These GUI shells can be booted from floppy disk or the system's hard drive. Most games also boot and run from floppy disk. Some are hard disk installable and others require hard disk installation. Since the system's release, software such as Human68K, Console, SX Windows C compiler suites, and BIOS ROMs have been released as public domain and are freely available for download. Case design. The X68000 features 2 soft eject 5.25 in floppy drives, or in some of the compact models, 2 3.5 in floppy drives, and a very distinct case design of 2 connected towers, divided by a retractable carrying handle. This system was also one of the first to feature a software-controlled power switch. Pressing the switch would signal the system's software to save and shut down. Similar to the ATX design of modern PCs, the screen would fade to black and sound would fade to silence before the system turned off. The system's keyboard has a mouse port built into either side. The front of the computer has a headphone jack, volume control, joystick, keyboard and mouse ports. The top has a retractable carrying handle only on non-compact models, a reset button, and a non-maskable interrupt button. The rear has a variety of ports, including stereoscopic output for 3D goggles, FDD and HDD expansion ports, and I/O board expansion slots. Display. The monitor supports 15 24ths and 31 kHz with up to 65,535 colors and functions as a cable-ready television with composite video input. It was an excellent monitor for playing JAMMA-compatible arcade boards due to its analog RGB input and standard resolution refresh timing. Disk I/O. Early machines used the rare Shugat Associates system interface for the hard disk interface. Later versions adopted the industry-standard small computer system interface. For the hardware's capability, formatted SASI drives can be 10, 20 or 30 MB in size and can be logically partitioned as well. Human68K does not support the VFAT long file names standard of modern Windows systems, but it supports 18.3 character file names instead of the 8.3 character file names allowed in the FAT file system. Human68K is case-sensitive and allows lowercase and Shift-JIS encoded kanji characters in file names, both of which cause serious problems when a DOS system tries to read such a directory. If her X68000 user restricts himself to use only file names according to the 8.3 characters schema DOS, using only Latin uppercase characters, Then a disk written on the X68000 is fully compatible with other Japanese standard platforms like e.g. the NEC PC9800, the Fujitsu FMR and FM Towns computers. The Japanese standard disk format used by the X68000 is 77 tracks, 2 heads, 8 sectors, 1024 bytes per sector, 360 revolutions per minute. Expansion. Many add-on cards were released for the system, including networking, SCSI, memory upgrades, CPU enhancements, and MIDI I/O boards. The system has 2 joystick ports, both 9-pin male and supporting Atari standard joysticks and MSX controllers. Capcom produced a converter that was originally sold packaged with the X68000 version of Street Fighter II, that allowed users to plug in a Super Famicom or Mega Drive controller into the system. The adapter was made specifically so that users could plug in the Capcom Power Stick Fighter controller into the system. Home arcade. In terms of hardware, it is very similar to arcade machines of the time, and serves as the Capcom CPS system development machine. It supports separate text RAM, graphic RAM and hardware sprites. Sound is produced internally via Yamaha's then top-of-the-line YM2151 FM synthesizer and a single-channel Okiem SM6258V for PCM. Due to this and other similarities, it played host to many arcade game ports in its day. Games made for this system include Parody Star, Shinwa Kara Owara E, Ghouls and Ghosts, Strider, Final Fight, Alien Syndrome, Street Fighter II - Akumaho Dracula, Chorensha 68K and many others. Many games also supported the Roland SC55 and Mount 32 MIDI modules for sound as well as mixed-mode internal, external output. List of X68000 series. List of X68000 games. Technical specifications. Processes: main CPU X68000 to supermodels, Hitachi HD68HC000 at 10 MHz 16 to compact models, Motorola 68000 at 16 MHz X68030 models, Motorola MC680C030 at 25 MHz. Sub-CPU, Okiem SM80C51 MCU, GPU chipset, Sharp Hudson Custom Chipset X68000 model, Cynthia Junior Sprite Controller, VINAS Court Controller, VSOP Video Controller, Reserve Video Data Selector ACE to X68030 models, Cynthia Sprite Controller, Vicon Court Controller, VIPS Video Controller, Cathy Video Data Selector, Sound Chips, Yamaha YM2151, 8 FM synthesis channels Yamaha YM3012, floating point DAC with 2-channel stereo output Okiem SM6258, 1/4-bit AD PCM mono channel at 22 kHz sampling rate. Coprocessor, AMD Banchuk Amigo 4007, memory ROM, 1 MB, main RAM, 1 to 4 MB, VRAM, 1056 KB, 512 KB, graphics 512 KB, text 32 KB, sprites, SRAM, 16 KB, static RAM, graphics color palette, 65,536. Maximum colors on screen, 65,536. Screen resolutions 256 x 240 pixels at 16 to 65,536. Colors 256 x 256 pixels at 16 to 65,536. Colors 512 x 240 pixels at 16 to 65,536. Colors 512 x 256 pixels at 16 to 65,536 colors, 512 times 512 pixels at 16 to 65,536 colors, 640 times 480 pixels at 16 to 64 colors, 768 times 512 pixels at 16 to 64 colors, 1024 times 1024 pixels at 16 to 64 colors. Graphics hardware. Hardware scrolling, priority control, superimposed dual tile map background layers, sprite flipping, graphical planes, 1 to 4 bitmap planes, 1 to 2 tile map planes, 1 sprite plane, bitmap planes, 1 layer, 512 times 512 resolution at 65,536 colors on screen, or 1024 times 1024 resolution at 64 colors on screen, 2 layers. 512 times 512 resolution at 256 colors on screen per layer, 4 layers. 512 times 512 resolution at 16 colors on screen per layer, BG tile map planes, BG plane resolutions. 256 times 256 or 512 times 512 BG chip tile size. 8 times 8 or 16 times 16 colors per BG layer. 256 BG colors on screen. 256 or 512 out of 65,536 color palette BG tiles on screen. 512 to 4,096 sprite plane sprite count. 128 sprites on screen, 32 sprites per scan line, 256 sprite patterns in RAM, sprite size, 16 times 16 colors per sprite, 16 colors per palette, selectable from 16 palettes, sprite colors on screen, 256 sprite tile size, 8 times 8 or 16 times 16 sprite tile count. 128 to 512 on screen, 256 to 1024 in RAM. Other specifications: expansion, 2 card slots, I/O ports, 2 MSX compatible joystick ports, audio in, out stereoscope, 3D goggles, port TV, monitor control, RGB, NTSC video image I/O expansion, external FDD, SASI, SCSI RS-232 serial port, parallel port, headphone and microphone ports, floppy drives. 2 soft eject 5.25 floppy drives, 1.2 megabytes each, 2 3.5 floppy drives, 1.44 megabytes each. Hard disk, 2080 MB SCSI, SCSI. Operating systems: Human 68K, SX, Windows GUI. Power input, AC 100V, 50/60ths of a Hz. Weight, ~8 kilograms. Optional upgrades: upgradable CPU, HOP, Motorola 68000 at 20 MHz REDZONE, Motorola 68000 at 24 MHz X68030-, Motorola 68030 at 33 MHz Excellent 30, Motorola 68030 at 40 MHz HARP FX, Motorola 68030 at 50 MHz Excellent 40, Motorola 68040 at 33 MHz 060 Turbo, Motorola 68060 at 50 MHz Jupiter X, Motorola 68060 at 66 MHz Venus X 060, Motorola 68060 at 75 MHz. Additional CPU, Concerto X68000, NECV30 at 8 MHz, with 512 KB RAM VDTK X68000, NECV70 at 20 MHz, with 2 MB RAM and 128 KB SRAM, FPU coprocessor. Sharp-CZ6BP1, Sharp-CZ6BP2, Motorola 68881 at 16 MHz, Sharp-CZ5MP1, Motorola 68882 at 25 MHz, Excellent 30, Motorola 68882 at 33 MHz, Sukumo TS6BE60E, Motorola MC68882, with 6 MB RAM. Sound card. Sharp-CZ6BM1, MIDI card system Sacom SX68M, MIDI card system Sacom SX68M2, MIDI card marker unit, 16-bit stereo PCM at 48 kHz sampling rate, 2 times Yamaha YMF288 FM synthesis sound chips, graphics accelerator and sound card. Sukumo TS6BGA graphics chip, Cirrus Logic CLGD5434 RAM, 2 MB 64-bit DRAM color palette, 16,777,216 in alpha channel maximum colors on screen, 16,777,216 maximum resolution, 2048 x 1024 pixels screen resolutions, 768 x 512 pixels at 32,768 to 16,777,216 colors, 800 x 600 pixels at 32,768 to 16,777,216 colors, 1024 x 512 pixels at 32,768 to 16,777,216 colors, 1024 x 768 pixels at 32,768 to 16,777,216 colors, 1024 x 1024 pixels at 32,768 colors, 1280 x 1024 pixels at 256 colors, 2048 x 1024 pixels at 256 colors. Graphical capabilities: 64-bit GUI acceleration, bit-blit audio capabilities, 16-bit stereo PCM at 48 kHz sampling rate, hard disk drive storage, Sharp-CZ5H08, 80 MB Sharp-CZ68H, 81 MB Sharp-CZ5H16, 160 MB